Show.
We're back at it again. It's the NFL Draft Tailgate Show here on the NFLDraftBible.com. I think it's our 5th episode here, along with you for the college football season ride. Your pregame show with an NFL draft slant, baby. We're going to go around the league and talk about all the top matchups. I am one part of the equation. RIC in the place to be. Ric Serritella telling it like it is. I'm going to introduce you to our panel in just a second. But just so you know what's on tap, we've got, of course, the return of the Pac, Pac-12. We've been previewing and breaking it down all week long on the state of football. Today, we're going to really dive into the nitty-gritty, talk about some of the prospects, talk about some of the future watch players. And, of course, oh, by the way, if you've been locked in on the Irish podcast and you know there's a game today, Clemson at Notre Dame. We're going to talk about that one with major college football ramifications and whether or not that Georgia and Florida game comes into the equation. Oh, by the way, let's not forget about Cincinnati, Texas A&M. We'll throw them into the wrench as well. Go, DJ. Hey, and what about the rise of Zack Wilson? That's where we're going to begin. And to break it all down, we have John Murphy, the VP of Player Personnel here for the Toronto Argonauts, representing New Orleans. Say hello to the people, John.
How's everybody this morning?
We're doing outstanding, but not as great as David Turner is in Phoenix, Arizona. He's been up at it, waiting and anticipating. He's going to drop some names on you here today. David Turner, how are you out in the desert?
I'm alive and living, brother. Let's get it on.
And we're matching today, I shall say. Of course, Ryan Roberts, along with David Turner, fresh off of Friday Night Scout School, the director of NFL draft scouting here at the Draft Bible, breaking it down. Oh, by the way, the NFL Draft Mailbag is now available. Oh, by the way, the Carson Strong feature is now available. Oh, by the way, the Irish podcast and Mav Sports Take is now available. Ryan Roberts wearing a lot of hats. Top of the morning to you, Ryan.
Good morning, folks. Glad to be here again. Glad to see you all this morning.
We missed you all week long. Let's dive into it because, here we go. The Zack Wilson train. It's not even a bandwagon now. It's a locomotive. And everybody on the Twitterverse, from Gil Brandt to Daniel Jeremiah to everybody and their mama, has Zack Wilson now pegged for the first round. I guess at this point, after that one there, he's now completing 75% of his passes on the season. 359 yards, 2 touchdowns, 21-2 touchdown to interception ratio on the season. Woo, it's getting hot in the Jersey Shore when Zack Wilson comes up. I guess my question is, it seemed on yesterday's show is Zack Wilson a first rounder? Here we are today. Is anybody not hopping on the bandwagon? Is anybody not on the round one train and questioning this Mr. Zack Wilson?
I mean, I'm not there yet. I definitely have seen the glimpses. I haven't, again, I've only seen one game live in the broadcast, right? But I haven't sat down and really had the opportunity to really diagnose and understand everything that is Zack Wilson. Does he have some plays on film where you go like, that is notable? That I can look at that and I can imagine that in an NFL offense. Absolutely. But I have not done enough work for me to be fully on that bandwagon yet. And then the other half of it is the quarterback conversation and quarterback, when you're evaluating, it's not just what you see on the field. It's the leadership qualities. It's the individual that you're bringing into an organization. So I'm just treading water for now on Zack Wilson. I definitely see the upside and what he's been able to do. And he's done everything that he needs to do against the schedule that was put in front of him. I'm just not hopping on it, the first round top 10 conversation that I woke up to this morning. Yeah.
Well, David Turner.
Not at all. When I watched him last night, he had a couple throws that were about 35, 40 yards, and it seemed like the receivers were waiting on the ball. So, is he very accurate? Yeah, look at the style of offense. This is almost like going back to the old Norm Chow Hawaii offenses where you have these quarterbacks with really great completion percentages, but they're just nickeling and diming, quick hits, a lot of screens, a lot of inside stuff, inside the numbers, where it's just, really nice system style openings, double slants and things to hit guys on the run, and they turn it into more yardage. And last night I really liked he had the courage to throw into tight coverage, which I liked for him. I liked he threw into tight windows. He had very good accuracy and made good receiver friendly balls, but those receivers bailed him out in about 10 balls. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, there was one on the sideline where a receiver had to go low to get it. There was another one where a receiver had to go pluck a ball over a defender. So his completion percentage is being helped out by his receivers' ability to play and make plays for him. I'm not in the first round. I mean, I think understand Drew Brees was the first pick in the second round. So it's not like I'm up here just trying to kill a kid. I mean, there's very talented players in the second, third round that go at receiver or in a quarterback, and we see that pan out. I mean, Dak was a fourth round pick or something like that. So this is just a kid, when you're talking value on a draft board, I don't know if that arm strength that I saw last night and some of the other things and the measurables and things are going to be first round talent for me. I do know from going into BYU as a young player, he was already respected by his teammates and was a good leader. So the stuff that Ryan was talking about, I think he'll check that box when the research is done on him, which might again boost him into the first round. I see this kid cemented last night, possibly a second round pick for him, a very high, good second round pick. But that's where I have him right now after last night's game.
Okay, surprisingly here we're going against the grain of the Twitterverse. Everybody's on board with the Zack Wilson bandwagon, John BYU quarterback. Are we going to get somebody on the panel here who believes that this kid could be a first-round pick?
Well, I think the interesting part of this is here's another kid who is going to test extremely well. So now when you add that element, once we get through this season and you get him out of the BYU offense, which was interesting enough that you got him into BYU because his dad played at Utah. So his dad's not getting invited to too many alumni events at Utah when you couldn't even get your kid, into Utah, and you have to watch him at Utah playing for BYU. But he's 6'2" and change. Now, how much change is that going to be, right? Because, in the last 12 or 18 months, has he been able to get closer to 6'3", than be 6'2"? He's around 210. He's a guy that could fill out a little more, but doesn't look, as a big physical kid yet in terms of, just getting to that NFL size to withstand what you're going to get there. And he's the type that if this is the kid you fall in love with, then this is the scheme you're going to play. This is what you're going to mold your offense around. And this is going to be your calling card. So now what does he have? Justin Fields looks like he may have a better downfield arm. Him against Trey Lance, he's going to have more experience. He's got 3 years. He's now at about 44 touchdown to 13 interception ratio. In that period of time, he's gone from early mid-60 completion to now, 75 to 78 completion percentage. So they're doing something right there in terms of calling the game for him. He's also doing a couple of things really well. They also have a great back that he can check down to. He's got 2 receivers he can go to. So he is playing in a quarterback-friendly offense. I don't think that necessarily means you will hold it against him. But to me, it's if we're in a Senior Bowl, type area, how is he throwing the ball if we could get some bad weather that sometimes accompanies us to Mobile in January? Does he throw at the combine? He and Trey Lance might be the 2 guys that really need to do it and stand out. And then athletically, he and Trey Lance, but specifically for him, he is a probably much better testing athlete than a Kyle Trask, than like a Mac Jones if you wanted to bring, another guy into the equation, things like that. And I think it's going to be similar athleticism to guys like Lance and Fields. It's not just going to be a landslide victory for those 2 guys. So where does he end up? I'm not shocked if somebody doesn't have, just like we talked about Trey Lance, someone can have a love affair with any of these guys, just like Gettleman did with Daniel Jones, right? And and that happens. And you can talk yourself into things when you're bad football teams, right? And a team like Jacksonville, if you're looking for, don't just make a pick, find an element, right? Find your Kyler Murray, not to, compare any of these guys to that, but the combination of Kingsbury plus Kyler Murray, we're selling out to play like this. And guess what? You're right where you wanted to be as the Arizona Cardinals at this stage of things when you put all those metrics in motion. So if you are a team in the top 10 or 15 and you're looking for that guy, it's going to come down to Trevor Lawrence can go anywhere, play for anybody, play in the scheme, You don't have to, change everything. Justin Fields, Trey Lance, Zack Wilson, you're going to have to be all in to say, this is my player, these are my coaches, this is how we're style of football we're playing, and we're moving forward. But I would think if you think a guy could play next year, I'm not sure if I could want to play Trey Lance next year.
Right.
I could see ideas of playing a kid like Wilson when you see what Burrow and Herbert are doing in an offense that fits both of them. But this would look different if you want to make the best use out of the athletic ability that we're seeing out of this kid. And then, like I said, him throwing at the combine or him throwing at the Senior Bowl, where you get to see, get him out of that system and let's see what he really is. To me, that's where, is it 30 to 40 pick range, or is it, that 15 to 20? And then if he gets into that 15 to 20 range, going number 6 or number 8 isn't out of the question, just like what happened with Daniel Jones.
Well, and I think Jordan Love was
Mark Sanchez too. Mark Sanchez came out at the perfect time for him too.
And I think Jordan Love was like number 12. So if there's first-round love for Jordan Love, then I would imagine there's going to be first-round love for Zack Wilson. He's got 7 games laid down on film. He now waits 2 weeks. That was really his statement game last night, because 2 weeks he plays Northern Alabama, I believe, which is a throwaway game. And then he has another 2 or 3 weeks off. He's got 1 game in November, 1 game in December. I think that 3-week gap, I think December 14th, they play San Diego State. That could be the trap game where you got these long layoffs. At that point, is he mentally checked out? Is he even going to play in that game? Once we get to December, that'll be another interesting question. But again, 7 games laid down, 21 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. The Zack Wilson rise continues here on the college football season. This is the NFL Draft Tailgate Show. Oh, by the way, we've got NFLDraftBible.com all-access membership will gain you access to our new premium website content. We're doing a relaunch. It's on the way. It's going to be jam-packed for the draft season. All of our scouting reports will now be available on the website. So a lot of happy campers there. Make sure you use our promo code Familia50, get 50% off for a limited time. We'll also send you a free copy of Scout Speak while supplies last. So we appreciate all the love and support. All the disciples, all the chat room peoples. I see you in the chat room. Charlie, I'm better than you. Waiting for some more to chime in, get some questions in. You got questions, we got answers. One question I have is solving the D'Eriq King dilemma, because I feel like coming into the season, we kind of just said, hey, let's wait it out. Let's see how this goes with Miami. And again, for the Hurricanes, the majority of their season being played here. Last night, another one for the ages, 31 of 41, 430 passing yards, another 100 yards on the ground, 5 passing touchdowns, no interceptions. The question begs to be asked. I'll go over to you, Ryan Roberts. Has D'Eriq King has he done enough to be drafted or to get the opportunity as a quarterback?
I think he's going to get the opportunity, even though he's really fighting against size and maybe some arm strength limitations. The question is, I think, and that's going to be the conversation for a lot of teams, is what is the outlook and the upside at a quarterback compared to being maybe a slot receiver or gadget? What can we get the most out of what D'Eriq King does best? He has the background as a slot receiver early in his Houston career. Is that his best possible position? Are we putting a cap on his potential if he's strictly a quarterback? Is in that sense, is he just maybe a relegated backup? Is he a Seneca Wallace type for the majority of his career, where he can come in and be an exciting athlete at times? For me, when I look at him and I say he's a next level athlete without any doubt in my mind, is he best suited then, if I think that he's a next level athlete and he's a contributing type athlete, to being a backup quarterback holding the clipboard the entire game? I look at him and I say, at a different position, I think that he is a more valuable player to a football team. And I think that he can provide a lot of layers to your team as that gadget player, slot receiver, do different things, do some quarterback reps in the Wildcat, whatever it is. I think that he's a lot more valuable than strictly being looked as a quarterback. I think
you could have another situation here, like the Kentucky kid coming out last year, Bowden. He gets drafted in the 3rd round by the Raiders. They move him around. They try him at receiver. They try him at running back, return man. They don't know what to do with them. They wind up trading him off already to the Dolphins. And so, it's every now and then you just get these incredible athletes, and you try to figure out where to place them. Hey, Scott Frost had to move to safety. GJ Kinney. I mean, he's back there returning kicks. You got to find a way to use a talent like De'Aaron King. David Turner, any thoughts on the Houston or / Miami quarterback?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think he could be a jack of all trades, kind of a Swiss Army knife. Joe Webb was a guy like that we had in Carolina that would play receiver, and then he'd come take third quarterback reps, and then it saved you a roster spot, right? So you could have a practice squad quarterback if you wanted or not, because you have a guy like this that can get you out of a game, and if you're really in trouble, he can step in and give you some quality reps. And like Ryan said, it gives you almost a triple threat because he can grow into a good slot receiver, will run some wildcat stuff from the backfield. When he's in the game, you don't know where he's going to line up, and he could turn into a return guy too. Yeah, he's not 6'3" and like the most physically dominant guy, but he's got some athleticism and skill where if you put him with like a Greg Roman or one of those really creative style coordinators, you'll find a guy that can use this to their advantage, not look at it as a disadvantage. So I think he doesn't fit a West Coast offense to me. This is a guy who probably more suited for a vertical stretch style of running routes and stuff when he does develop into a receiver. So, that's what I would say. But I think you get him with a creative mind and they'll know what to do with him. They'll find a place for him.
And I think Taysom Hill is on a 1-year deal there in New Orleans. Who knows if they can afford to bring him back or not, but maybe he slides into that kind of role with the Sean Payton type. But this is the NFL Draft Tailgate Show. We've got a lot on the docket, 10:25. We're moving and grooving here. Let's dive into the Pac-12. We've got a lot of good games on the docket. Of course, Michigan at Indiana, a battle of ranked opponents. How is the college football playoff poll going to shake out with Notre Dame, number 4, hosting Clemson, number 1, Florida at Georgia, Cincinnati, Texas A&M in action? We'll get to them all. But, hey, we've waited patiently, and, the COVID has already thrown a monkey wrench into the Pac-12 again. We're down to 4 games today here on the Pac-12 opening kickoff, but we do have some Pac-12 action, and let's kick it off with the early game, 9 a.m. local time. David, we talked about it on the State of Football earlier in the week and talk about accuracy. Kaidon Slovis completing 70% of his passes last week. He faces Arizona State and the talented Jaden Daniels.
He does, and this is going to be a great quarterback matchup. I talked about it with Ryan on the podcast on Mavs. This is one that we really are looking forward to seeing. And this is a 2022, 2023 draft class style quarterback front runners right here. And we're going to see how these two competitors really come out and start slinging it against each other. Hopefully, no one does too much. And, right now, when you look at the rosters, Sloven is surrounded with more talent. Even, if you want to go and look at St. Brown and Vaughns for the receivers, and then they got 2 running backs in Carr and Malapi. I don't know if I spelled that right or said that right, because we all know I don't do that. But, he's got guys around him. The left tackle there, Vera Tucker, is a very talented guy. Probably will slide in at the next level at guard, but he's a guy who's talented there at USC. So the offense around Sloven, to me, is really packed, jammed with some good talent. And then on the defensive side of the ball, too, you got young guns like Drake Jackson, defensive end for USC, who's a good pass rusher. I think he's going to be a 2022, 2023 draft class. Ryan, you can correct me if I'm wrong. And then their middle linebacker, who I'm going to butcher this, so get your knives out, get ready. The cleaver's coming. Galatatoroli is what I think his name is. I know he's number 1. He flies around like his hair's with his hair on fire. He's a middle linebacker that's sees red and goes to it. Not really a pass covering kind of guy, but he's a downhill bruiser. So there we go on him. Another guy is their 56 Jordan Ifasa. Again, I got the cleaver out. I'm butchering names over here. Just let it know it's what's going on. But he's 6'2" and 235, so he's kind of fits more the mold of what maybe some teams are looking for there. On US or on Arizona State, Darby, the slot speedy receiver, might be the highest draft pick coming in here because he's really a talented young guy. And that's all Daniels really has when you're looking at it, though, at Arizona State. It's going to be a team victory if they do win. I really think USC is going to pull this one out. They are favored by 11. I think that's going to be solid. And the 55.5-point spread, I think that's going to be in question because I don't know if Arizona State's going to score as much to get them there.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how the defense responds. First game of the season for these
And
guys.
it's gonna be a rainy game too. It's 100% rain and only like 55 degrees out there. So, the passing games could get stifled a little bit.
Well, it can't be raining long in California. What do they get? Sun showers out there?
No, it's like the one day all week that they have rain, 100% rain. It's crazy.
Jaden Daniels, Keaton Slovis, a matchup of two young up-and-coming quarterbacks, and Stanford's got a pretty good one. Both Stanford and Oregon today, Ryan, have a good one, but the Oregon quarterback is going to have to wait with Anthony Brown. However, Stanford here, even though Oregon is the ranked opponent, I think this game could be a lot closer than people are anticipating, especially with all the opt-outs they have.
Yeah, and if you saw my mailbag piece over this week, I mentioned Davis Mills a little bit, the quarterback from Stanford. He didn't play a ton last year. He kind of came in down the stretch through some KJ Costello injuries, latter part of the season last year. But I'm telling you, man, Mills has something to him. He was a highly recruited kid. There's a lot of talent there. Number 15, he is tall. He's got that 6'4" frame. He's filling out. He's an athlete. He apparently runs in the 4.7s from what I'm told. He has a strong arm. There is something to him. And in this class where, again, we're still trying to figure out like 4 through 10, who are those quarterbacks in that circumstance? Is Davis Mills going to have enough of a resume with the shortened season to take his talents to the NFL in the 2021 NFL draft? That's the big question mark for me. But I think that he could set himself up, like David just said, with Keaton Slovis and Jaden Daniels, that 2022 class crew. I think Davis Mills could set himself up to be a huge player in that class because he's got a lot of talent. Michael Wilson, Semi Fioco, their slot receiver Connor Weddington. They have a lot of nice talent in the passing game. The Stanford offense, obviously, with Walker Little at left tackle. They have Foster Sarrell at right tackle. There's some guys to keep an eye out. I'm not a biggest fan as on those offensive tackles as some are, but he's definitely some guys to keep an eye on in that passing attack. Going against Oregon, which even with some opt-outs, they still have Diomandre Lenore, and they have a really talented safety that I have a piece coming out on very soon in Verone McKinley III, who I think is a very talented safety on the back end. I think Oregon ultimately has a little too much. They have CJ Verdell on offense. They have a lot of talent on defense. I think they're going to stifle Stanford just enough to claim this victory, but I do agree that I think Stanford's going to keep it close for a while because I think in the first game of the season, trying to figure everything out, make sure our defense is in solid positioning, I think Stanford can take advantage with the weapons that they have and Davis Mills set up for a potential rise.
Yep, I agree. I think it's going to be a close matchup. It's going to be an interesting game. Pac-12 action kicking off. We go over to the chat room. Our friend Mark Jarvis, thank you for joining us. Good to see you hanging out. Wants to know Arizona State DBs going back to the Sun Devils. Chase Lucas, Jack Jones, Fields, Crosswell, talented group indeed. The two guys I'm kind of familiar with, Chase Lucas, we talked about on yesterday's show. I love this kid. I think he's a first-round pick in my book. I kind of compare him to Antoine Winfield, who I was very high on last draft. I don't think he even went in the first round. I couldn't understand why. To me, Chase Lucas can play for my team all day. I know he's got to bulk up a little bit. Jack Jones, he's going to be interesting. I know Ryan's scouting report did not come back favorably well, as some of the love that I've seen out there for him. He's got some off the field baggage as well. Ryan, did you care to chime in on that?
No, I think Jack Jones is a really talented man corner. I just think that there's some limitations. He's listed at 5'9", so he's going to be a guy that's going to have to slide inside almost exclusively on the next level. And then you take in the off the field stuff, with getting kicked out of USC for a couple incidents. I think there's just a cloudy background there. I've seen some people have him in the first or second round. I think he's more an early day 3 gamble with that athletic upside because I think he's going to test really well. He's got good film and coverage. I just don't see physicality, and I don't see a lot of length or ability to match up against taller receivers.
John,
my problem with Lucas is when I was going in there for the Panthers, he was the same kid, and he's still the same kid today. He hasn't developed the game. He is who he is, and he hasn't gotten bigger. He hasn't gotten stronger. He's always felt like he thought about coming out as a redshirt sophomore. He was just like, I'm so good. And it's just like, come on, kid, you got to develop your game. You are who you are, but you got to develop your game. You got to get bigger. You got to find that weight room. You got to eat a donut. So it's like he hasn't done that his whole career. Why is the like going to go on at the pro level if it hasn't gone on yet. You know, as a scout, you put your name on him and you're like, hey, this kid's going to be who we want in our locker room and everywhere. But you go into Arizona State and, you know, they don't sing his praises. They're not throwing a ticker tape parade for this kid. He is who he is. He doesn't want to change. And therefore, you know, that's what you're getting. And that kind of attitude to me is what's going to make his stock fall, because he is talented, but the attitude and the arrogance around this kid is just, I can feel it from here. I can feel it over here. And I live 10 miles away from him.
Interesting take. John, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, especially when you're there, and if you have Herm Edwards, you know, so the good news is he knows who to recruit, and you have an NFL guy, you know, to listen to and to develop from. So that door could swing either way for guys like this, especially, you know, guys in the secondary. People are going to take what Herm Edwards has to say, you know, and you know you're in a player-friendly environment for that group. So you can't say that the development process, you know, wasn't available to you if you are not taking advantage of it. And your reason for that is you think that, you know, after one season or, you know, after a certain point in time, people are in your ear, you know, telling you how good you are. You know, that's a careful, you know, that's kind of a dangerous road for guys. And we've seen a lot of guys, you know, that can have, you know, second round grades go in the fourth round. And it's not always because you're short. Sometimes, you know, it can be because of your, you know, off-field baggage. And that would definitely be something that I think he would have to answer for, you know, in the postseason. Now, does he have the ability to alter that? You know, could there be a change in behavior, you know, down the stretch? And, you know, when you get into that and you start hearing it, you know, and kind of getting hit by it, yes. But we've also seen a lot of other kids kind of just push that to the side, take it for what it is, just hope that there's one team that's going to live with, you know, kind of their, you know, little BS baggage, you know, and we'll see, right? Because normally guys like that, if that's how you are in college, you can end up with a good pro career, but it normally means you better be renting, not owning, because you're going to spend a lot of time moving from team to team to team. That's, you know, a lot of those kids, you know, at the next level, your technique needs to be sharp. Your attention to detail needs to be sharp. And more importantly, it really plays itself out at the next level for the guys that put in the extra time, show up early, go and put the extra time in the film room, you know, and in the weight room. Because kids like this, you're not stepping in automatically and starting at the next level. So you have to play teams. You have to learn different aspects of your game, and you have to have the willingness to show that, because a lot of times that's what earns you a couple extra reps on the defensive side of the ball in practice, is going and doing other things that start standing out to your staff so that you have a reason for them to go to bat for you during the practices, go to bat for you in those meetings. Kids like this make coaches worry about their jobs, because if you're a dink, it's now my responsibility when we draft you to make you not a dink, because the finger gets then pointed at the coach for not turning that guy into a player, not the scouts who have a paragraph about him being a dink.
Well, Eli Apple would be a recent example of that. So the interview process, I think, for both of those corners are going to be critical. And, hey, in a COVID era, doing an interview on Zoom, that could hurt your draft stock, because you don't really get a true feel for the kid. You don't get to shake his hand. You don't get to look him in the eye. You don't get to break him down one-on-one and have that intimate conversation and get a true feel for somebody. So because of that, you know, if there's lingering questions, that could actually work against those guys. So good question, Mark. Appreciate you chiming in there. Washington State at Oregon State. Johnny, another good Pac-12 matchup here. Game 3 of 4 on the Pac-12 slate.
Yeah, and here's two teams that are in that mix to be, you know, can you be that next team that takes a step forward, right? Mm-hmm. We didn't get Cal. We didn't get the Cal-Washington game this week, and Cal's a team that thinks that they have a shot to kind of bust into the upper tier, there of the Pac-12. Oregon State has that club back, at least in the picture, to start closing the gap in state again, that has clearly gone in one direction, you know, for a significant period of time. And it's because it's Oregon State. It's an Oregon State alumni now in full effect there, turning that program into what they expect it to be, which is play really sound defense, run the ball, play tough, and then be able to win games down the stretch. But be in these games, don't have them be, the kind of games that we've seen in recent years where they're 2-3 score losses to the upper tier, and then you're just hoping to grind out a victory, at home against a couple of the downtrodden clubs, there. Washington State, brand new world, not a lot of difference possibly in this brand new world because you're going from the Mike Leach, to kind of the Rolovich offense. Now, the one thing Rolovich was able to really do well is he brought the number one quarterback that he had coming to Hawaii, brought him with him, to Washington State. So that'll be good for them, in terms of long-term. How that offense works early on, like I said, they played that style. The defensive coordinators in the league know that they're going to play that style, so it probably will not take as long for the school to adjust to it, but could it allow defensive coaches to adjust to it quicker, than per se if you were bringing it into a new conference? I think Oregon State has enough talent across the board here, to win this game. The interesting matchup, is, the factor that you have potentially a first round-ish pass rusher, Hamilcar Rashed, against Abe Lucas, who could be an ascending talent athletically as an offensive tackle. That's a really good, interesting matchup there. I really like to see what Jefferson will do in the backfield for Oregon State now that he's not sharing carries. He could be a guy that kind of moves on the radar. You want to see some bigger plays. He was kind of averaging about 5 yards a carry. The starter last year was north of that. So if he takes that job over, completely by himself, it could be 1,000-yard season. And again, CJ Verdell, more highly thought of than him at this stage of things entering the season. Let's see how that gap closes between now, and the end of the regular season. But I think Oregon State, Cal, the Colorado thing, like I said, maybe it's because I'm such a Mel Tucker fan that I think it might take a year for them to recover from that. But I would expect Cal, Oregon State, Colorado, one of those teams to kind of give some of these better teams a run for their money and start trying to establish themselves in the middle tier of the Pac-12 to then hopefully ascend, into competition for the Pac-12 in the next 2 to 3 years.
And oh, by the way, the Beavers' very own Jacob Luton in line to make his first career NFL start tomorrow for the Jacksonville Jaguars, NFL PA Collegiate Bowl alumni there. You mentioned Colorado, John. Let's talk about him. UCLA at Colorado. The COVID has been running rampant through the Pac-12. UCLA with a couple of positives there in the program. As far as I heard as of this morning, the game is still a go. So what do you got here with the Bruins and the Buffaloes, David Turner?
Well, what's interesting here is that, I don't think there's much happening with these two teams. I think they are who they are. And they, I like the Felton kid, the running back slot style receiver, running back kid, gadget guy out of UCLA. He's interesting. I think he's got some juice to him. I think Chip Kelly will use him in a good way to find a way to get a ball into his hands. And once it's there, he knows what to do with it. Their quarterback, Thompson Robinson, he's a guy. I'm not really excited about him. Maybe I'm wrong on that. Maybe someone else on the panel wants to talk him up. But to me, he's just a guy. He's not something I get all excited about. Third year in Chip Kelly's offense here. We'll see how Chip's, if he's really going to make UCLA turn the corner or if it's just going to be a Chip Kelly, bust type thing go on here at UCLA. Over at the Colorado Bucks, Lytle, I think starting for him, it'll be his first start. So we'll see if he can do something with his first start at the Buffaloes. Nixon, their wide receiver slot guy, again, another really good gadget guy that we'll see what happens there. If you're going to look at anybody here in this game as far as draft potential goes, you got to look at the Colorado Buffaloes defense. Number 53, Laneman. Now, this kid's been starting, I think, since his sophomore year there. He's got a lot of starts under his belt. He's kind of like Vandenbach. Well, who's the guy that the Cowboys drafted out of Boise State? Van what?
Leighton Vander
Yeah,
Esch.
he's kind of like that because he's 6'3"-ish and 230-ish. And he kind of reminds me of when Leighton was playing at Boise State. So I like this kid a lot. I don't know if he'll go that high, obviously, because I don't know if he can cover the ground that Leighton can cover. I don't think his foot speed's there, but I do like his instincts. He's a downhill physical linebacker. And then Johnson, Mostafa Johnson. Now, this is sawed-off little guy that's like more 3 technique. He's like a 6 foot, maybe 6 foot, 290-pound guy that just plays with quickness. I don't know what his spot would be at the next level because he is a shorter guy. I don't think he's going to measure well. I think he'll test really well, but I don't know if he'll measure well. So we'll see where he lands up. But today he should be a little wrecking ball for him inside and outside. They move them all around. They play a lot of 3-man line there at the Buffaloes.
Yeah, Mostafa Johnson coming off the injury, 6-year senior there for Colorado. UCLA has the defensive lineman there, 00. I'm not even going to attempt to say his name, but he's definitely one to watch, as is Quentin Lake, son of Carnell Lake, who you might remember from the Pittsburgh Steelers, some bloodlines there. And I don't know, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, to me, I feel like he does have the NFL traits of a modern-day signal caller when you talk about dual threat, athleticism, very strong arm. Just 1 year there at Bishop Gorman, so I think he's kind of a best football yet to come. And, we've had conflicting reports here on the state of football, the NFL Draft Tailgate show. He's not going to be for everybody, but I do think that it's a very telling season in terms of, has he bought into Chip Kelly's system? Because you don't have a choice, Dorian. You've got no other options right now. And so you've got to be all in, and you've got to show us what you're working with. And so, this is a critical move here. I do know he will return next year, no doubt about it, because his mother is a professor there at UNLV. They value education a lot. So, Dorian Thompson-Robinson isn't going to declare early. He'll definitely stay in school there and continue his development in the classroom and on the field.
I got a good idea for you. You might want to transfer your ass to UNLV if you want to win any games.
Wow.
Oh.
Well, they just fired his high school head coach, Tony Sanchez, who came over from Bishop Gorman. I forgot who got the job now, who's the head man at UNLV right now, if anybody can tell it.
Does UNLV win games?
Well,
they don't lose by 30 the way UCLA does.
Yeah, they're down there.
Enough.
I know they were on bowl suspension due to academics. I mean, that's just how far in the gutter the program was that they weren't even
Vegas, man. Like, you really expect them to go to class? Come on.
I live there, and the answer is no. So that's a big NO. Oh boy. All right. So there's your Pac-12 docket. We got those games out of the way. Let's shift gears. Of course, NFLDraftBible.com. Go all access. Subscribe today. Use our promo code Familia50. It's good for the Draft Bible publication, all access membership, Friday Night Scout School, Baldy's breakdowns, the Marvin Jones undrafted free agent database. Go check it out. We've got a lot of good stuff going on. Ryan's got a lot of great content churning out. Of course, Scouting the Nation every Monday will give you all the draft risers, sliders, and surprises. One surprise, kind of, sort of, Penn State 0-2. Their season just about in the bucket here, Ryan. But, we saw Maryland, I think it was a Friday Night Lights last week, the birth of a new superstar. Is this kid for real? I mean, are we buying into the Tagovailoa hype part 2 here?
I'm just rolling with it for a second because his first start wasn't too great. Obviously, had the great start against Minnesota. Minnesota just might not be very good. I mean, before the season, I had some hopes for them. They don't look good right now. So Maryland has a couple guys at receiver that are worth talking about with Talia there. Dante Demas, who is a junior wide receiver, 6'3" kid, averaged like 18 yards a catch last year. He's got some talent to him. I'm excited to see what they do in this test because they're going against a couple really talented pass rushers and Shaka Toney and Jason Owe. Owe is that freak that everybody's talking about, could be in that first-round conversation if he puts it all together this year as a junior. So he's not going against Minnesota defense this week. He's going against a very talented front that I think is going to give him a little bit of issue. The question for Penn State is, because that defense has a lot of talent to it. Lamont Wade on the back end. Sean Clifford, is he the guy? I don't think so. I don't think there's much there, honestly. I've watched him now a lot of starts because, Rick, in New Jersey, like you always get the Penn State game, right? That's always on TV. We always see it. I've seen him several times. I just don't see it there. But I do see a couple talented offensive linemen. Rashed Walker at left tackle, Will Fries at right tackle. Rashed Walker at left tackle, Will Fries at right tackle, Michael Manet in its center. Talented players. They'll all probably play on Sundays in some capacity. Sean Clifford, not sold on him, but the name Pratt Fryermuth, who I'm a big fan of, the tight end there. He's got that baby Gronk moniker, which I feel like goes to every tall white tight end now that wins with his size, which is a little funny. But, Fryermuth there. The question is, Clifford good enough? Can they get a run game going? They haven't been able to establish anything on the ground so far. I think they get it going a little bit today, enough to beat Maryland probably by 2 scores.
All right, we'll see if the Maryland magic carpet ride continues or if Penn State can put the first W on the board here. So that's Maryland at Penn State. How about the Thundering Herd here, John? Suddenly ranked 16th in the nation, undefeated at 5-0. Hosting UMass. UMass finding another opponent here. Second game of the docket, maybe their last game of the season, but got to get some love in for our Minutemen.
Yeah, and I think, you got to give credit that UMass's athletic department did everything they could to just try to say, like, hey, if you got some open dates, we'll be available. We'll try to fit in and, and get in there and play. I think the big part of it had to do with probably – a hometown kid in Larnell Coleman who has a chance to get drafted. Now, this will be the type of kid that'll suffer that there's no Shrine game. I'll wait for Dane to tell me what they're doing, with the PA, game. But this kid needed a chance to go out there, do one-on-ones at left tackle, at an all-star game and potentially go to an early one. And then get on the radar to say, like, hey, if you got 2 opt-outs at the Senior Bowl, right? If you get somebody who, pulls an ankle or does something, their bed's too short and wakes up with back spasms, on a Wednesday, that you can, bring this kid in off of, hey, by the way, didn't you see him, kind of 2 weeks ago? Because he's going to be all of 6'6", 315, 320. But here's a kid when you ask, how is he at UMass? I mean, he played tight end, O-line, D-end. He was a basketball player. He's literally 60 pounds bigger than he was in high school, there. So a 2-star prospect going to UMass who has turned himself into a real dude when you look at him on the hoof. Looks like he's athletic enough that you can play him as a left tackle and leave him there until otherwise, right? He's not mechanical. He's not a big, heavy-footed kid. But what you're going to want to see is, how does he bench? Not the number, but is the bench hitting him or is he hitting the bench, right? Because big guys like that, when you have the wingspan, there's times where it's a struggle, and you want to at least look better than I would if you're pumping out 225. But for him, I think this is a critical opportunity against a favorable, against a good group of guys, gives him a chance to at least, ramp it up. And then the other thing is, there's no way UMass would have been playing Marshall, right? So you're an East Coast kid, and now you give a chance that you're going to get seen by some Atlantic South, depending on who the clubs are sending, who's watching that Marshall, game for NFL teams. This might really help a kid like Coleman because you might get an odd scout watching this game today in the box or in the future next week watching it, and you might stand out to somebody who just kind of pencils in and then goes to the East Coast scout and says, hey, this Coleman kid, what did you like about him? So I think he's got late round possibilities. I'm really going to be disappointed that a kid like this probably does not get the, postseason opportunity that he would have. Still think that depending on the numbers, it's going to really depend on how many underclassmen and what the combine could do. Not shocking if he could still, make the combine list because, like I said, the one thing he will definitely do is he's going to be all of 6'6", 315. And when you look at him, he looks like what you want a offensive tackle to look like. On the flip side, Marshall is playing exceptionally well. They have gotten the most out of their season. You saw that big win, against App State. They're playing very, very good football. And there's a nucleus of teams there, right? We mention Coastal Carolina every week because until we figure out what a Chanticleer is, we're going to keep mentioning it, but you have Coastal Carolina, right? Marshall and Liberty all playing exceptional football. And look where all those teams recruit their players from and the number of college football teams that are in that area. We'll always mention the South and Texas and Florida, California, for where there's prospects. Got to start looking at that, Mid-Atlantic region is churning out a lot of really good prospects when you see NC State taking Miami to the finish line, North Carolina where they were at one point, App State still in there, West Virginia, Virginia Tech, Virginia, are all in there. And then you have these other schools all making their way into the top 25. There's a lot of really good football being played in that Mid-Atlantic region. And I think Marshall has an easy win here. But, playing the game, and I know we don't say this, and Herm Edwards, if he's listening, will not be joining in on this conversation. For UMass, playing the game is your victory, is your moral victory today. Just try to keep it under 30, okay?
Well, I'll say this, and great segue into our next matchup. If Larnell Coleman doesn't get invited to the Combine, it's a sham. It's just a sham because he's getting drafted.
He didn't transfer to Rutgers.
Well, hey, there's a whole nother situation. My Rutgers, somebody said they're going to file a complaint to the Big Ten to stop counting points for Ohio State today. They're going to turn it around, but today could be ugly. But hey, we'll see. But you mentioned Marshall, number 16. Our next game, you mentioned Coastal Carolina. How about Liberty? All of a sudden, number 25 in the nation, 6-0. Hugh Freeze is at it again, visiting Virginia Tech, who you also mentioned, John, 4-2. Bronco Mendenhall building a very good program there with the Hokies. David Turner, take it away.
Yeah, well, I mean, a part of the success here is the quarterback, the dual threat transfer from Auburn that came into Liberty, Malik Willis. I mean, he's really leading the way for this Liberty team. He's a lot of their offense. So, I mean, this kid is taking – here's an opportunity where a kid went from an Auburn to a Liberty, and he's making the most out of it. We see sometimes kids go down a level, transfer to a different school, and they don't take advantage of the opportunity. Here's where we're seeing a very D1, high five-star style athlete come into Liberty and do everything that he needs to do to improve his draft stock. So this is a kid who's really taken the team on his back and led the way. Interesting guy also there at Liberty that's helping their defense out is Ralph Razin. What is it? Raisin? Something like that.
Ralph Ruzan.
Cleaver, because I just butchered things over here. So,
I didn't know David Turner was French.
Razin. No.
Razin.
So, it's 6'6" and 6'6", 280. I know he's on the NFLPA watch list. This is a kid that's really interesting. I don't know if they're going to come out of this one undefeated, though, because you got guys on Virginia Tech. It's a little bit bigger of a program. And you got like Herbert, your dude, Rick, the running back that was out of Kansas State or whatever, transferred over there. And then Trey Turner, the high point wide receiver who really does well adjusting to the ball when it's in the air and going and plucking it. The left tackle, again, here we go. Cutting.
Darisaw.
Kind of reminds me of a little Dwayne Brown, not the tallest guy, but he's a good left tackler for the Hokies. So I mean, you got the Ashby, their little sawed-off linebacker, who's like a Sam Mills, led the team for tackles for like 3 years straight. So again, you got guys all over this Hokie defense and offense that are probably going to get drafted or be undrafted free agents, and it's just going to be too much for the Liberty today. The Liberty bell will not ring today.
Liberty, we are putting you on upset alert.
Oh, boy. Here we go.
We're going to get the sirens going. No more top 25 for you today. Hugh Freeze and the relentless Hugh Freeze out there in the hospital bed in the press box calling plays. Hey, it is the NFL Draft Tailgate Show. It's brought to you by Everclear here today. RIC in a place to be. Ric Serritella telling it like it is when it comes to the NFL Draft and everything football, along with John Murphy, VP of Player Personnel for the Toronto Argonauts. We got David Turner, CEO of Maverick Sports Consulting, of course, a longtime veteran scout, CFL executive, 3-time AFL champion, and Ryan Roberts, Director of Scouting for the NFL DraftBible.com. Go all access, Familia 50. Use our promo code. It's a November to remember. While supplies last, you get a free copy of the Scout Speak book, a hard copy of the Draft Bible publication, access to all of our scouting reports and premium insider content. What more could you want out of life? Make somebody's Christmas. Do it early. Do it now, because we are thankful here in the November to remember season. All right, where are we going next, guys? Back over. We got Big Ten action here. 2 ranked opponents, Ryan. Michigan, number 23, 1-1 at Indiana, number 13, 2-0. The underlying kind of rumor mill here in this matchup is the whispers have now resurfaced, right? We can now kind of see that the Wolverines' tenure of the one Jim Harbaugh not really up to standards and expectations for the Michigan program, and now you're hearing chatter that this could be the year now that he takes back off to the NFL. But take it away, Michigan at Indiana here today.
Yeah, and it's been a rumor for 3 to 4 years now. I feel like every time something doesn't go right for Michigan, which is mainly when they play Michigan State or Ohio State at home, that seems to be the crux in Jim Harbaugh's armor during his Michigan tenure. He's facing off against an Indiana team that's ranked 13. If someone can tell me the last time that Indiana was ranked that high, I'm listening. It's not a basketball game, but Indiana is ranked number 13. Michael Panix Jr., I know a lot of people are really excited about at the quarterback position for Indiana. I know that they have Fillier at wide receiver, another talented player on that offense. They're facing off, though, again, against another talented pass rushing duo like they did against Penn State, going Kwity Paye and Aiden Hutchinson, who are both extremely talented defensive ends. Kwity Paye, athletically, if he tests the way that some people are talking about, he's got first round written all over him if he does indeed hit those numbers. Offensively, it was a struggle last week for Michigan with Joe Milton in his second start. Did not look as crisp. They lost a lot of wide receivers. Also, from this offseason with Tariq Black, Nico Collins, who just got invited to the Senior Bowl. A lot of excitement. Right tackle, Michigan, Jalen Mayfield was one of my more pleasant watches over the summer. Didn't hear a ton about him, and now you're really starting to hear his name kind of talked about a whole lot more. Michigan doesn't struggle against the University of Indiana. I think that they take them down today. Michigan, the Jim Harbaugh critics are silenced slightly for another week until eventually when they take on the Ohio State Buckeyes and whatever, they give up another 60-point bomb or whatever. I feel like they do it every time now.
All right, there you have it. Michigan at Indiana. Our producer here, Samantha, behind the scenes.
Harbaugh is quickly playing himself into the ability to be now coaching the Jets, so he'll be going downward. He'll be leaving Michigan to coach the Jets.
Jeez.
Well,
the Jets. Let's keep him out of New York. Let's send him down to Houston or somewhere.
Well, there'll be a khaki sponsor in the works there. Our super producer, Samantha, behind the scenes, hopefully she starts paying attention to the chat room and does her job there. We always appreciate all the hard work that she does each and every week. All right, back to the rundown here. We've got SEC matchup in the makings, number 7 at Texas A&M at South Carolina. The Aggies 4-1, the Gamecocks 2-3. John Murphy, what do you have for us here?
Well, and again, we've mentioned it several times, and it's not because we just have no love for Kellen Mond. Now here you go again against a good to above average defense at times. They can bring pressure. They have 2 outside corners. You have to go make plays and keep yourself in contention here, because Oklahoma State has another matchup against a team that could give them a little bit of trouble today. So if you can just keep on winning in the Big 12, it's just keep on winning so that somebody can get to the finish line and go to a good bowl game. Because are you really going to allow, in a season where Oklahoma got out the gate the way they did, are you still going to let Oklahoma come all the way back and win the Big 12? Because they're on that – they're kind of seeking, in that mission right now, where Oklahoma each week is getting a little bit better. They've stopped giving up 45 a game and started giving up only 30, 35 a game. So they're making little improvements there, on the defensive side of the ball. I think this is a tricky matchup because, once again, it's South Carolina at home where they've been able to get a couple of teams. And, they've played very well against Auburn defensively. They make some plays. They have a matchup scenario there. I think the interesting part of this for Texas A&M is, can you win this with play action to the tight end and a whole lot of Spiller? And it not be a big Kellen Mond type performance in terms of, statistics, because, that's what you've seen out of them when they win games, like the game against Florida. It has been because Mond has gone for 350 plus. I think I might be a little more in control, of this clock. Try to get South Carolina, to, a little while, have to kind of close in and try to stop the run against Spiller, and then give yourself some play action opportunities, there, which would, allow you to open up South Carolina's defense a little bit. I got A&M they're winning. They're getting me to be convinced a little bit here. Normally this is a game A&M would lose in the past 5 years. I think it's closer than it needs to be for A&M, but I think they come out of this, still holding on to a top 10 ranking. And like I said, with Oklahoma State playing K-State, who's been in contention every game, even after losing their senior starting quarterback, K-State, Oklahoma State is a little bit of an upset kind of alert there. How does Oklahoma State rebound from that tough loss to Texas? So here's A&M with a real shot, to put themselves in the driver's seat to at least be on the verge there until they play Texas, which will be, again, a really interesting matchup there at the end there, to see who is going to actually take control of this, Big 12, so Texas A&M has to get their job done in order to keep somebody in the mix for who can get into the top 4 after today. Is it A&M? Is it Oklahoma State, right? Is it Cincinnati? So you have SEC, you got Big 12, you got Independent. Who's still in the mix here? Because one of the Florida-Georgia team is out. And I think if it's Georgia that stays in, A&M has a shot to get over Georgia because of the quarterback play.
Yeah.
Florida is going to be the favorite team that everybody wants to stay in the mix because of that high-powered offense. A&M, this is a big matchup for them, to stay in contention to be in the top 3, 4, 5 teams down the stretch here, which, would not have been something you would have expected out of this club at the beginning of the season.
No, I think, listen, Jimbo Fisher there, if they went out, the Texas A&M Aggies are in the college football playoffs. And I think, coming into this game, Kellen Mond is looking at that South Carolina secondary and saying, hey, I got a chance to boost my draft stock here with a pretty good game because he is ascending. And you mentioned Kyle Trask and the Gators. They're visiting Georgia. We'll talk about that in just a second. I'll tell you what, Trask, Kellen Mond, I'll even throw Jamie Newman into the mix, even though it's questionable. You could rank those guys in any which way you want at this point in time. But, a strong showing here against one of the top secondaries in the SEC. Kellen Mond and J.C. Horn, Ryan's guy, are going to lock horns today over there. And Texas A&M sitting at number 7. However, David Turner, if Cincinnati runs the table, and they are not just winning, they are winning convincingly. Memphis, we whooped you. Houston, who else? SMU. I mean, I think SMU was even favored, and Cincinnati routs them by 30, 40 points. So now they take on Houston, who is 2-2, traveling into Cincinnati, who has college football playoff aspirations here, sitting at 5-0. David Turner, what do you got for us?
Well, what I really am liking here is this is a great measurable game. If you're going to talk about measurables, as a scout, all the prospects that are playing in this game really hit the measurement marks through the whole roster. And when you're looking at Cincinnati's success, for me, you got to start with the quarterback, Desmond Ritter. Okay, Ritter is a 6'4", 215-pound quarterback that has a good, clean release, not really elongated, nice short release. I wouldn't say it's the quickest or the most rocket-like arm, but again, he's efficient. He's really good with what he does, and he has really good measurables. I think when he's a redshirt junior, so he has an option to go back or stay in. He can come out and try the waters this year or stay in for next year. We'll see what he does at the end of it. And you also have on the other side of the ball over in Cincinnati, in Houston, you have Clayton Toon, a 6'3", 215-pound quarterback. So you're looking at very old school, prototypical quarterbacks matching up here today. He's a junior. Again, he's a true junior, so he'll be back. It's looking like, this is going to be fun to watch. These two young bucks lock horns today. For Houston, there is a defensive end, Payton Turner, number 98. This kid is 6'6" and 270. So you got a guy who's long, what you're looking for. I mean, that's the same measurables as Jason Taylor when Jason came out of Akron or wherever. So, it was just like, here you got a guy that's got great measurables. You got a safety for Houston, Deontay Anderson. He's a transfer from Ole Miss. He's 6'2", 225. You got a defensive end over at Cincinnati. Again, here comes a cleaver, Marjon Sanders. And he's 6'5", 258. You got a safety for Cincinnati, James Wiggins, who's another guy who's a big guy and good measurables. So as a scout, when you go into a game like this, you see all these measurables all around. You're like, hey, now let's start putting them into the categories. Is he a first rounder, second rounder, third rounder, potential free agent? Because we already know they're checking the boxes measurable wise. So Cincinnati, I think they got great young talent. I think they're going to, develop it and be a team not only for this year but next year. And they got a chance to really do some fun things. I see them winning this game, and I really like it on the shoulder of Ritter why they win it.
Yeah, I think there's too much at stake here. They're not going to let this one slip by. I do like the playmaker there for the Cougars, Marquez Stevenson. I think he could be a kind of day 3 wide receiver / return guy. You've seen him make big plays there, time in and time out. We're going to get into this marquee matchups, Florida at Georgia, Clemson at Notre Dame, closing it down here on the NFL Draft Tailgate Show, brought to you by NFLDraftBible.com. Desmond Ritter, Ryan, I know is a guy here that you've studied before we get into Florida, Georgia. To me, I see kind of a perfect storm for him to declare here, because if Cincinnati does run the table, and they do indeed get into the college football playoffs, in my opinion, strike while the iron's hot, baby. Because you know what? At the end of the day, are you really going to catapult into a top 100 pick if you return to school next year? Probably not. You are what you are. You're a developmental guy with the upside to be a good backup at the next level. I feel like if Cincinnati does somehow manage to get into that college football playoffs, Desmond Ritter's draft stock is going to be at an all-time high. We talk about all these other underclassmen. Desmond Ritter is almost like the forgotten signal caller.
Yeah, and like David said, he's a redshirt junior, so I don't know what his graduation status is, but if he's graduated, they end his career on a high note there. Right now, the number 6 team in the country, obviously Cincinnati's having one of the best seasons they've had in memory. So I think that you're right. It is the perfect storm. I feel similarly about Desmond Ritter than I do about Kellen Mond. I feel like all the talent is there. He has the size, athleticism, arm strength. You have measurables, like David said, that you can work with there. And like you said, developmental type player. The question is, and I just feel like he's just kind of been the same guy for a couple years. After his redshirt freshman year, I had high hopes for him, and then he was just the same guy as a redshirt sophomore. Haven't watched him a ton this year, but I feel like it's kind of been the same thing. It's been a little up and down. I want to see the best of him as consistently as possible. I just feel like there's just too much variation to the player that you get in Desmond Ritter. There's too many highs and lows, similarly to a Kellen Mond. So, yes, I am completely on board. He's a draftable player, developmental player, and like you said, the timing of everything with him being a redshirt junior, potentially graduating, ending his career off on the right note, I feel like it may be the perfect storm for him to enter 2021.
Yeah, we shall see. All right, let's talk about this number 8 Florida Gators, 3-1, traveling into Georgia, who is 4-1, number 5 in the land. This one has college football playoff ramifications written all over it. Ryan, take it away.
Yeah, and I feel like David should talk about this because he's the biggest Gator fan I've ever met in my life. Kyle Trask, Kyle Pitts at tight end. There's a lot of guys offensively worth mentioning.
Connection, baby.
Yeah, the K&K connection. Yep. If you were with us on one of our seminars a few weeks ago, we talked about Kyle Pitts, and David was doing this right now, the exact same thing he's doing right this moment. They also have Kadarius Toney at wide receiver, who's a really talented wide receiver.
Is that the Beyonce bop? What is it?
You gotta bounce. You gotta bounce, baby. You gotta bounce. You gotta bounce.
What are we bouncing?
You gotta bounce these big old chichis.
We gotta get wait till I get you the shirt you gotta wear for losing that Cardinals Seahawks bet. Just wait.
Oh, I've been waiting, baby. I've been waiting. You're sitting on your laurel.
Oh,
I don't know what
go ahead.
doing. I'm over here.
Oh, believe me, it's coming. It's coming. Don't you worry about it.
Sorry.
Can I continue? Am I good? All right. Yeah, just keep shopping in the background.
Get on that.
Yeah, mute him. Get him out of here. And so they're taking on Georgia, which we talked about defensively is really talented. Azeez Ojulari, Eric Stokes in the back end, Tyson Campbell. They're not going to have Richard LeCount, who had, I believe, a motorcycle accident. So he's going to be out for today's game, which is a big loss. Obviously, working against one of the more talented passing attacks in college football right now. And I'm not personally going to put my money on Stetson Bennett beating Florida today. So I'm going to take the Gators in this one. I think that Georgia's going to keep it close because they still have some studs on defense. But I'm not. If I was a betting man to a high degree, I would definitely not be putting my money on Stetson Bennett, the 5'11" Georgia quarterback.
Upset alert! Upset alert! I know who Turner's picking. Ryan's got the Gators. John, are you on board with the Gator upset here?
Well, there's no Pickens either, right? So now that's taken one of Georgia's guys away. And the one thing that would worry me if I'm Florida, because I think this is a game where, like I said, we've seen Georgia. Georgia's a top 10 team against everybody that's not a top 10 team. They play a top 10 team or a top 5 team or Alabama, then not so much. But the one area, if you want to, say like, hey, where's this game got a chance that it could go the other way, is Florida's given up like 130, 40 yards a game on the ground, and Georgia can run. So if they can limit penalties, which was a problem Georgia had in that Alabama game, if Georgia plays offensively the way they did early until Alabama figured it out and then, went bombs away on the offensive side, there could be a component to give Georgia a route to winning the game, which would be they have playmakers on every level of defense at Georgia. If you can run the ball effectively and then limit the amount of possessions that Kyle Trask has, maybe we don't get in a shooting match here and you got a shot. If not, Florida should take this game pretty handily if it's the other way. Because the offensive attack, Trask has shown it. He's not a A-level NFL prospect to me, but he is a very, very effective and efficient quarterback in their scheme in college football. When they lose, he still put up five scores, in their loss. It wasn't his fault that they lost to A&M, in that scenario. So to me, Florida has shown enough offensively that even with Georgia's defense, you think they're going to be able to score enough. If you want a road to victory, like we keep hearing all week long, if you want a road to victory, Georgia's road to victory is about as short as Trump's right now, which is the run game. You got one. The run game and limit the possessions. Okay, that's 2, but that's all you got. Florida, you got the passing game, you got their defense, you got the return. Florida has more outs to how they win this game. If it's under and it's a low-scoring game at halftime, that's to me where Georgia, 23, something in the lower variables give Georgia a shot here, but it's going to take an outstanding defensive effort for them to do it. I think Florida has enough, and they are a top 5-ish team. They may not be perfect. They may get torched, by a better team, than them that are in the top 3 or 4 right now. But Florida could give any of those teams at least a match.
I'm on board. I think it's unanimous here on this panel. We've all got the Chomp, the Gators, Trask to Pitts. They're going to be lighting it up. That backfield too. I mean, what a committee they have going on in that Gators backfield. I mean, any one of those three backs can shake loose now for a big play. All right, the game that everybody's been waiting to talk about here so far, I would call it the college football game of the season. Clemson, undefeated, 7-0 at Notre Dame, number 4 in the nation, 6-0, playing in that ACC, tearing through the opponents until they meet the powerhouse, which is Clemson. Interesting, studying up on this quarterback DJ here at Clemson. We all talk about Trevor Lawrence, and it's been a quarterback-heavy show. There's some talk here that DJ could be a potential number 1 overall pick. I saw EJ Manuel compare him to a combination of Cam Newton and Matthew Stafford, for whatever that's worth. But Clemson, obviously playing without Trevor Lawrence here, John, at Notre Dame. How do you see it?
First off, no disrespect, EJ. I really don't want to hear you comparing anybody to anybody. Okay? All right. The only reason you are not the worst quarterback person speaking on television is because Orlovsky has a job. Please, both of you, hit silent on the mic.
Wow.
Both. Hit silent on the mic. Please.
Terrible.
But Big Cinco. All right. So now are we going to come out of today with a new nickname that'll be, on everybody's tongue? Great story. I thought it was a great story last week. Boston College, at 28-10, the story was going to get told one way or the other. And this kid did, I thought, a really good job. And again, it shows you why Dabo Swinney, if nothing else, the real number one thing for sure in the country is that guy's the best coach in the country. Because you got that kid with the pressure that he's under, because you're undefeated and you're playing Boston College and you're down 28-10. They simplify what they're doing. They give him the passing game that he can do well with, that were probably the plays that he was most comfortable with. And then he went out and performed, and there's all kind of athletes out there. So yes, they do not have the number 1 pick in the draft. They don't have the guy that would have been or could have been the Heisman favorite and still might win it if he comes back and runs the table. But I don't think this is necessarily like, well, wait till the next time. No matter the result of this, they could play each other again in an ACC championship game. I don't think Clemson's thinking that way whatsoever when you see how he played last week. Now, the difference will be you are still a freshman quarterback. You then gave 4 quarters of film to a team that has better defensive players, that are a veteran-laden team that knows how to bring pressure, can run the ball. And there is your methodology here. It's not having Ian Book have to go out there and outperform either Trevor Lawrence, or DJ here. It's the problem with him is you're at only 62% completion. So you have to be, to win today, north of that, because those are the key downs to keep Clemson off the field and keep their defense on the field. Because you could run the ball on Clemson effectively enough to get yourself in contention to be a 4-quarter game. And then let's see what a freshman quarterback, who normally it's one of 2 ways. Game 1 to game 2, you can see progression, but game 1 to game 2, you can see the opposing team that now has film figure some things out. And now, which way will they go? Does Notre Dame pressure early? And if that doesn't work, do you then give them coverage? Or when you see a guy like this who wants to throw first, he'll run if he has to, but he wants to throw. Do you show pressure, drop, and force a couple of turnovers? Because if they play like last week, I'm not sure you overcome an 18-point victory against a team that's better than Boston College. But there's a road to this being a matchup where we potentially could see this one more time. We could potentially see this matchup 2 more times. A close win today, then Trevor Lawrence comes and wins an ACC championship game, and they're 1 or 2, and they could still be 1 and 2 by then, or 1 and 3. it puts Clemson in, it wouldn't take Notre Dame out in that scenario. And the other interesting one is a close loss because one of Florida, Georgia is going to lose. You know, there's other teams losing in the top 10. We all know if Notre Dame then came back and played Trevor Lawrence in an ACC championship game and beat Clemson that time with Trevor Lawrence, it will count greater than just one single victory if you beat them at full strength. So this could be, this is still not, to me, it hurts Notre Dame, I think, way worse if you lose. Because your road back to the top 4 is tougher, but as much as they don't want to talk about it, undefeated BYU, undefeated Cincinnati, a one-loss Texas A&M team or a one-loss Notre Dame team, get ready for Texas A&M against Cincinnati in the Cotton Bowl, because you know where the dollars go. But a couple of things, I'll give one to you now, and I'll save one for the wrap-up. The going out comment, 27 years. It has been 27 years since Notre Dame has beaten the number 1 team in Notre Dame, and that happened to be Florida State, an ACC team.
Well, I'll tell you this. This will no doubt be the biggest win of Brian Kelly's career. David Turner.
He still has to coach the game. And Brian Kelly can't coach this game. He just can't do it. He'll find a way to screw it up. He'll find a way to ruin it. I'm a Notre Dame lifer, and all I watch this guy is crap down his leg every time they have a big game in their sights. So you know what, Brian Kelly? Go somewhere else, coach somewhere else, get the hell out of my school. Let's get a real coach in there to win these games. There we go.
Wow.
Any questions?
No. I'll pass it over to Ryan Roberts on that note. David Turner putting Brian Kelly on blast here on the NFL Draft Tailgate Show. Ryan, I know you've been chomping at the bit. In fact, you had a whole podcast dedicated to this matchup here.
Yeah, and it's, David's just being really negative right now. I'm not the biggest Brian Kelly person either, but come on, man. I'm with John here, though, man. 1993 was the first time that Notre Dame hosted College Game Day. Florida State, they took down Florida State. That happens again today. They take down Clemson, not only because Trevor Lawrence is out and DJ Uiagalelei, that's how you pronounce that, by the way.
There we go.
Not only is he taking over in his second start with a little bit of film on him, which hurts him to a degree, they're also lost James Skalski, their starting middle linebacker. They're also down Tyler Davis, who I'm told by a Clemson beat reporter this week that I went on the radio with yesterday, that is the heart and soul of their defense. That is the Trevor Lawrence to their defensive unit. So Notre Dame, running game, that offensive line, 5 offensive linemen that are going to play in the NFL across, think they're going to be able to establish a running game today. Keep Ian Book in second and third and short opportunities, which if you look at Notre Dame this year are actually very good on third downs. So keep him in manageable situation. David Turner's gonna choke on his words tomorrow morning when I text him, or tonight when I text him, because he's 2 hours behind me. Notre Dame takes it today, baby. Finally, Brian Kelly gets that win we've been waiting for against a nationally ranked team.
Tonight. I'll send you the bar bill tonight because you're losing this one. Brian Kelly's going to figure a way to lose it.
At least I'll be a little drunk. It'll be easier to take, David.
That a boy. That's what I like to hear.
You got the Notre Dame shirt on underneath there, Ryan, today?
It's not what's up?
There you go. Well, I'm not believing. I'm sorry. I'm just not believing here. I think Clemson is too hot to handle. And I do think it's going to be close for about a half. And then Clemson will pull away and do what they do. But I think it'll be a good matchup. I'm excited for it. Sounds like John will save his prediction here for the parting shots. But we have 2 on Clemson, 1 on Notre Dame. We'll see if the luck of the Irish is on the side of Murphy on his parting shots. But let's go over to David Turner, who I know has to catch a flight here soon. He'll be on location, scouting the nation at the A&C Combines, heading to LAX. David Turner, fresh off of Friday Night Scout School. You had Mav Sports Take podcast this week. hit the people at home, the listening audience, with a parting shot here.
Hey, by the way, it's a nice shirt. You got great taste in what you wear on. Yeah, it's great taste. You got great taste. I'm just saying, your sense of style is second to none, buddy. Okay.
Thank you.
Hey, I just wanted to say I'm proud of America for getting out and voting this week. I'm proud of everybody. It's a record number of votes in this presidential election. And, whatever the outcome is. But my whole goal was to motivate people to get out and just vote and let their voice be heard. I'm proud of America for that. I'm proud of being an American, that so many people did vote this year and took this fundamental right of being an American and utilizing it and using it, because so many people around the world don't have a say on who the representation is, and we do in America. And so therefore, I just want to say to everybody, I'm very proud of you. Thank you for doing that, and thank you for doing your part. So whoever wins this election, as close as it is, that will be the right person that will represent us for the next 4 years. So that's my parting shot.
Indeed, it helps when you can vote 2 or 3 times per person. Dead people voting.
Listen. It's not a political show.
I'm just saying, hey, congratulations, America.
Sam, take care of this.
Over to Ryan Roberts here for a parting shot.
Brian Kelly, 2024, David. That's all I got to say. Voting for him tonight too, baby. Yeah, just on live right there. You just did that. I can't believe you just did that. No, seriously, I'll be on Twitter later tonight because David said I'm on the Tweeter all the time while I'm watching the game. So hop by. We'll take a look as the Notre Dame takes down Clemson. That's all that matters for me today, David.
We're gonna have to
get you a little Tweety Bird shirt because you're on the Tweeter so much.
We have to move this show to HBO. John Murphy with a parting shot here for the people.
Yeah, well, we mentioned it's been 27 years since Notre Dame beat a number 1 team in Notre Dame. No one, and I mean no one, comes into our house and pushes us around. And why is that important today? Because 45 years ago today, the last play of a Notre Dame versus an ACC opponent, Georgia Tech, was one of the plays that everyone in college football history remembers, because it ended in a sack made by a walk-on 45 years ago today. Rudy Rudiger dressed and played for Notre Dame. And tonight, someone's getting carried off the field. I don't know who it is. They may not be on the field. We may have to social distance. But someone's getting carried off the field. Brian Kelly, make sure we're not carrying you off the field in the wrong direction. You got one job to do today. One. We're going to run inside. We're going to run outside. We're going to run inside, outside. And when you get them on the run, we're going to keep on the run. Make sure you do that tonight, Brian Kelly. 45 years ago, Rudy dressed. You got one job tonight. Don't ruin that.
We're going to have to virtually carry Ryan Roberts off of the show if that happens. You make me want to pick Notre Dame. With that being said, we're here 2-2. Notre Dame, Clemson, the college football matchup of the year. We went a little overtime, folks. Shout out to all of our panel today. John Murphy, David Turner, Ryan Roberts. I am Ric Serritella for the NFL Draft Bible.com. We'll see you Monday on the State